Inside Delmar Hall, Jon Hamm and Lucas Kunce rally Democratic supporters ahead of a debate tonight. And outside, these are not Halloween costumes. No, these are campaign stunts from the old school of campaigns. The Hawley campaign here to troll Lucas Kunce for injuring a reporter at a campaign event recently. We asked him about that event during this interview. You can watch it now. I do wonder about power and fame, though. They have something in common. They reveal the character of someone, don't they?
They can, for sure.
Have you seen that?
I think we've all seen that. I think there's a lot of examples on that in the political stage, certainly in my business, in the entertainment world. But I think that what they all are ephemeral, and it's all about what you do with them, what you do with your power, what you do with your fame. What do you want to do? Do you want to help people, or do you want to help yourself? One of the guys in the race wants to help other people, wants to help Missourians specifically, wants to run for a position that is defined by representing other people. The other one has that position and hasn't done anything with it. Over the last 6 years, we've seen what he's done, which is nothing. He hasn't brought a single dollar back to his constituents, the people he was sworn in to represent.
Oh, he did triple his Senate salary.
Sorry, he supported one Missourian himself.
Republicans might see him as someone who pounds the table in Senate committee hearings, who puts on the spectacle, who dives into the culture wars and fans the flames of that rhetoric that has become so ingrained in our current political jargon. Do you see that as a part of the script moving forward? For example, would you ever use the position of a senator to jam up an appointment or a nomination or to negotiate a piece of legislation? Is that appropriate?
I think it can be appropriate in certain circumstances. I think the problem that you have with Josh Hawley is that he's a show horse, not a workhorse. And so, I mean, I'm not above giving the man a compliment if he's earned it. And like, he is very showy. He can be very loud. He gets on a lot of TV programs, and he says a lot of things that get attention. The problem is that he literally never delivers for anybody but himself, right? I mean, he doesn't pass any legislation. He doesn't bring money back to this state. You know, Roy Blunt, who you never saw doing stuff like that, the former Republican, he brought over $300 million a year back to this state. He accomplished things like, I want to be more like that. I want to bring the money back to this state. I do think there are times where you have to use your leverage as a senator and take a stand, but like, when you take a stand on literally every little thing and it just turns into meaning nothing and you never accomplish any of your goals, then you haven't succeeded at all and you've just left the people of Missouri behind.
John, you narrated an ad for Lucas's campaign. I think some people are wanting to know if Michael Ginsburg or Peggy Olson wrote that ad.
Who wrote it? Yeah, I don't. Unfortunately, the fictional advertising executive that I played at one point has long outlived his real life usefulness. But he, you know, Don Draper kind of knew the smell of bullshit when he saw it coming, and that's kind of what I think we're responding to here. Look, to get back to Lucas's point about Josh, he, you know, even when he raises his fist to the January 6 people, and then when the shit hits the fan, he runs the other way. I mean, come on, man. When the rubber hits the road, he's just not there, and Lucas has proven over the course of his career, not only as a candidate, as a father, as a Marine Corpsman, has proven that he is going to get the job done, not just for himself, for the people he represents. That's all I care about. That's why I'm here.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Don Draper. I got to follow up. He also tried to completely rebrand his identity after running away from lighting a fire that became deadly, and well, it was something he ran away from there. I don't know if he also liked Dick Nixon. I think I remember that. Would he have voted for Josh Hawley?
Don Draper didn't vote. That was his statement.
He would have sat out this race?
Now, to be fair, the reason he didn't vote was because, and again, we're talking about a fictional human being.
Right.
He didn't vote because he wasn't who he said he was. He couldn't vote. He didn't have the proper credentials.
On that ad, though, back to that, you criticized Josh Hawley's book, Manhood, and suggested maybe that his courage was fake. What is it? You're an actor. You know when someone's putting something on. What is it about Josh Hawley specifically that you find fake?
Simply the fact that there's no there. He doesn't, at the end of the day, when you take the tally of all of the things that he says he's going to do and that he actually does, one is much larger than the other, because the other is zero. Again, you can just look at the record. If he has not brought anything back to the state of Missouri, he's not done anything for anybody but one person. That's terrible.
So Lucas, if voters are going to the ballot box this November wondering what you're going to do for them, I want to read you a quote from some American companies these executives are telling the Washington Post that they're preparing to raise prices on everything from clothing to footwear to baby products, auto parts, hardware. That means your insurance could go up, that means your rent could go up, that means a lot of things, all because of Donald Trump's promise to raise tariffs across the board. Is Donald Trump's economic plan good policy?
You know, I don't think tariffs are necessarily a bad thing, but I think they have to be used as a direct tool for something. And so a good example I will give is I was at the Pentagon doing procurement in my last tour of duty, and I was at a unit called the Defense Innovation Unit. And so our job was to find cutting edge technology and, you know, things like drones, you know, battery storage, energy creation, genomic things, stuff like that. And so what we found was that China has used its monopoly power over and over again to completely destroy certain American sectors and markets. And so one of the things that we really had to try to revamp while I was there was small drones, like DJI drones, for example, right? Like that entire market was captured by China. They didn't play by fair market rules. They used the power of the state to undercut everybody else and drive everybody else out of business and then took over. So I think in situations like that, where China's not playing by the rules, you should use tariffs. You have to equalize somehow, and that's the only tool you have.
But not on the EU?
But just like broad tariffs, well, I mean, if the EU's cheating, look, I'm not saying just China, right? If anybody's cheating or if they're using their state power in a way that's not fair and that undermines our free market, then we should be able to use tariffs, but it just shouldn't be like a broad, like, let's just tariff everything. I don't think that makes sense.
I can tell you're warming up. You got a big debate tonight. Josh Hawley's already openly mocking you for wounding a reporter during a campaign event at a shooting range. Why were you shooting a high-powered scoped rifle at a steel target from like 20 feet?
Look, we came in and the range was set up by an NRA certified training instructor.
There's video showing you put the targets up. What was going on there?
So he set up all the targets, and then after you'd shoot, you go put the targets back up. And so we followed his directions throughout. He'd run that range, I don't know, dozens of times. Being a training counselor is one of the highest levels of certification you can get from the NRA, actually. And we trusted him. Turned out he was wrong. You know, the reporter got a little piece of fragmentation, but he was okay, bandaged him up. We moved on with our day. He was able to finish reporting. And, you know, I'm glad Ryan's doing well.
You called it a great day at the range. Was it a great day at the range?
You know, I think that we all got through it. Everything worked out okay. And, you know, I'm just proud of the fact that we were able to take care of him and he was fine. On
the future perspective looking here, what policies would you support in the Senate that might change the way Americans relate to guns?
Well, I mean, you know, I think that it's like 90% of Americans want the same thing, like an age limit on weapons or some sort of training that goes along with that if you're a young kid. I think we want, you know, like real red flag protections so that people who are mentally unstable or otherwise would be dangerous won't get it. And then violent criminal background checks on every single gun sale. And, you know, those seem like common sense measures to me that I think is pretty sad we don't have.
My last question, I want to ask about your background some. We're hearing a lot from these next-gen Republicans these days about traditional values, traditional families, traditional gender roles. We heard that from Josh Hawley and Harrison Butker when they pined for the lone male breadwinner in a family. We also heard from that when someone asked J.D. Vance how he would lower the cost of childcare. He said maybe grandma and grandpa can babysit more often. You've talked before about how tragedy upended your childhood and that the traditional family maybe you would have wanted wasn't there for you. How do you hear recommendations like this, that government policy should promote this idea?
Well, that's awfully nice of them. It's awfully nice of JD to offer up someone else's help without asking them. That's first of all, that's maybe grandma and grandpa should be asked, not just depended upon. You know, look, whose tradition is this traditional value, right? It seems like it's not very inclusive as to who gets to pick. Some of us are thrust into situations we have no control over. I mean, accidents happen, as was proven on the range. Sometimes accidents happen. Sometimes you're thrust into situations that are out of your control. As a kid growing up, I lost my mom when I was 10 years old and my dad when I was 20. I was very fortunate to have other people, other families, friends kind of step up into that void and help out. A lot of people, as we know, don't have that community to help them out. And that's where I think that policy can come in and help. So this idea that, you know, whenever you hear people talk about this idea that they've only ever pulled themselves, there's a million examples of it in the current political landscape of people that have pulled themselves up by bootstraps and they only did it by themselves and they're fiercely libertarian, they're the rugged individualist, and you look a little closer and they go, no, they had a family, they had an inheritance that they lived off of, they had this, that, or the other, they had financial aid, they had all of these things that they conveniently forget about when it's convenient for their argument. I don't forget about that. I don't forget where I'm from. I don't forget what brought me here to this place right now. And I don't forget that I have an obligation to do something to make the future better for those that come from behind me, not just to leave them behind. And that's why I'm here.
They always say it comes down to turnout. There are people watching this right now who don't know if they're going to vote.
Live?
Well, when they see this, it'll be right now for them in the future. What's your message to, and I'll give you this chance to, closing argument for why you, but why vote at all? If there are some people who might tune out, like Don Draper would have, and said, I'm just not going to vote, what's your argument to them to get off the couch and go vote?
The argument is that it's the one thing we as Americans have to determine our future. I'm not telling you which way to go. I'm not telling you have to do this. I'm certainly not. That's our freedom. It's our franchise. It's why we started this great experiment 220 some odd years ago, 250 years ago almost now. You know, it's why we're here. It's why it's the chance we get to determine our lot in life. It's what makes us Americans. I think it's the most important thing. It's the most important right we have as Americans, the right to determine our own future. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here to help. It's why I want people to go get out and vote. And for my money, go get out and vote for the guy who represents a better future.
And in your words, closing argument, why Lucas Kunce over Josh Hawley?
Well, look, I think our democracy and our political system has been corrupted by big money, massive corporations. I take no money from corporate PACs, no money from federal lobbyists, no money from big pharma executives, these people who buy off weak-minded, ambitious, hungry politicians like Josh Hawley and literally use them to strip our communities for parts. I mean, my old neighborhood, you go back there now, you know, it's empty lots, it's boarded up houses and shut down businesses. And the reason I don't take that money is because I believe the Missourians deserve someone who was just there to represent them and doesn't owe anybody else. And the only people I'll ever owe are the people in my old working class neighborhood who, when my family went bankrupt from medical bills, took care of us, brought food by the house, and passed the plate for us.